There it is. Very good. Okay, right there. Okay. How does the clicker, how does the clicker work? The big green button that's dotted. Okay, I'm gonna give you the power. Okay. Miigwech, ani bujo kinawe, bimshkujo chak de go, makwadodam, wikum kong donjaba. I'm very happy to be here today. I am the trustee for Ontario, representing all of your voices in your communities at the Future Generations Fund. I have just started my second appointment to my three-year term. So I will hopefully have the opportunity to continue to do these presentations and follow-ups with you moving forward. I have here with me Naomi Reset.
Good morning, everyone. I want to thank you all for having us today. I really appreciate it. It's the first time we've had a chance to talk to the Ontario Chiefs. I'm originally from Saskatchewan, from Little Black Bear First Nation. So I'm really happy to be here on the homelands of the Hiawatha First Nation. It's beautiful to be by the water. So thank you for opening your arms to us. And again, thanks to Chief Benedict for allowing us this time. And I'll let Linda take it away. Thank you.
So before we get started, we just want to make an acknowledgement of the collective ancestors that we have here in our room, the bundles that we have with us, and acknowledge the former Ontario representatives or trustees for the Future Generations Fund, which was formerly known as the, what is it?
National.
Oh, yeah, the National Indian Brotherhood, sorry. Yeah. So just for myself here, representing a complement at the Future Generations Fund as a Board of Trustees. Myself, Naomi.
So what we do at Future Generations Foundation is we administer the residual funds from the Indian Residential School Settlement. So I'll give you a little bit of the history and try and fill in some gaps just for those chiefs that are new, and also for all of you that are really going, what happened to the Indian Residential School funds? Where are they? What's going on with them, and who's overseeing them? So we were established as a charity in 1975 by some First Nations who had the foresight to set up a charitable organization. It was relatively inactive for many years. It had no money, had no resources. So then in 2007, when former National Chief Phil Fontaine raised his voice about the residential school experience, it went through the residential school settlement agreement. And you'll remember it went through the 1.6, it went through the big court agreement. It was 1.9 billion. So you'll see in the diagram here, it's that, the growth piece and the rivers flowing. So we had the $1.9 billion settlement, and then it went through the common experience payment, and that went to survivors and those that accessed it. And then unfortunately, after, about 3 years of that sort of process, well, it was actually 8 years by the time it went through the courts, but 3 years after the common experience, it went through the personal education credits. And then there was a significant amount of money that was never accessed by our survivors. Many had passed, unfortunately, or they just didn't access it. And at that point, the government gave about $156 million to the NIB Trust Fund at the time, which was National Indian Brotherhood Trust Fund. And since then, and that's when we had, as Linda had mentioned, Wally McKay. Wally McKay was our trustee at that time in 2015 until 2021. And you'll see that there's still, the residential school settlement agreement still is not completely closed. It will close this year. The final transfer on that will happen at the end of this year. So we've had disbursements on that fund come to us over the years. So we had another disbursement in 2021 of 12.3 million. And then in 2023, we went through a rename, and that's when we became Future Generations Foundation. And then now in 2026, we're expecting the final transfer. Canada has just audited that final agreement. And so now we're expecting the final transfer from there.
I think what's important to also make note of is during the time of that settlement, there was a education priority. And at the time when that settlement agreement occurred, the trustees at the time, or the negotiators, had really opened up the door in terms of what education meant for First Nations people, and allowed us to be a little bit more flexible in terms of meeting those needs within our communities. So take, for instance, the URSA transfer of $231.4 million. So far, we've been able to allocate $115.7 million across Canada from coast to coast to coast. And we've also been able to grow the fund up to $272.2 million. And that is just as of May 16th, 2025. And some of that comes from being able to open up what education meant for First Nations communities, but also having a diligent overview in terms of what that fiscal management is. So some of the funding opportunities that we look at are, for one, funding individuals and always prioritizing survivors. Applications that come from survivors get funded first, and then we go through a matrix in terms of how are we allocating funds to individuals. We also provide an opportunity to organizations, because we also understand that organizations serve our populations both on and off reserve. And also sometimes they serve our populations that by design may not be eligible for funding due to, maybe status, being a non-status First Nations member. And the other one that's fairly new is continuing the journey. And this is supporting First Nations specifically in communities as related to burial sites and unmarked graves. And this is a new fund that we've been able to allocate for First Nations across Canada. So total funded coast to coast to coast, we have 2.8 million of continuing their journey, 71.0 million for organizations, and 41.9 million to individuals. So as you can see, there's 805 organizations that have been funded, and 9,557 individuals have directly received benefit. For Ontario specifically, this last fiscal year, there was $2.6 million that has been allocated. We continue to fund the organizations at 1.7 and the individuals at $984,778. Plus, with the continuing that journey fund, what the allocation that was available to Ontario was, it started at close to 1.8. About 1.8 million it started, and we've done some allocations for Ontario. That's applications up to a maximum of $200,000 to support that continuing their journey work. So the remaining that's left is $832,052. So looking at the variabilities for individuals when they make their applications, these are the types of learning or educating that we process applications and fund. So for Ontario, the application distribution amount was 984,778. 78% of applications that applied were approved. There's still not enough money to fund all of the applications or fund them at 100%. So we do the best that we can. But as you can see here, that cultural learning and training and trades, I'd really like your support in terms of increasing those applications. There are scholarships, and there is a priority in terms of education, but education comes in all different forms. So if we can encourage our community members to make applications that might be for cultural learning and for training and trades, that would be really good for our communities.
And I'll just add to that, the Future Generation Fund is really one of those funding places where we can fund trades. It's a place where not a lot of nations can fund it, but we can. And also the culture and language, like Linda said, it's really important that we can fund that. So we do have a timetable, and it's always hard when we have deadlines, but I just wanted to say, this is the timeline, and we do it every year. So if your community members somebody misses, there's always next year. It's just a 10-month cycle. I know it seems like long, but boy, it moves fast, those 10 months.
So in terms of the organizations and First Nations, the funding overview, we look at, that broad spectrum, family, kinship and healthy parental programs, youth programming, culture, language and healing programs, reconciliation programs, and education and employment programs. And we also have to recognize that, due to the agreement, there are some narrowing of what is eligible for funding, but there is some flexibility in terms of what that narrow scope is. For Ontario, for the organizations, 1.7 million was allocated last fiscal year. If you take a look at culture and language, there is 57% that was allocated to applications this year for organizations. And 9 out of 16 organizations received that support for culture and language. Again, too, there is youth. There's an opportunity for youth. Again, that's not a highly prescribed one. Healing and reconciliation and family connection. That would be, if you can encourage your communities to also make those applications, or the organizations that you work with within your communities, if they're eligible. If they're ineligible for one stream, we may be able to work on their eligibility in another stream.
Another change I'd just like to add to the organization stream this year is the Board of Trustees, the Income Tax Act has changed. FGF is a charity, and charities have a lot of restrictions when it comes to who we can grant to. And I'm sure a lot of you have heard of the qualified donee status before. There are several. When we started this process, there were only about 200 First Nations that had qualified donee status. Now there's over 430 of them. But the foundation has just, because the Income Act has changed to allow for charities to grant to nonprofits as long as it fulfills your charitable mandate. The trustees have opened it up to all First Nations. We feel that it's time for us to move past the qualified donee status. So all First Nations are now eligible for our organization call. And again, the organization timeline is there. It's always November. When the fall is finished, we open our call. When the winter sets in, we close the call, and we fund by April in the spring. And it happens every 10 months. So if you miss it, it's okay. It'll come around next year.
Miigwech. So one of the new things that came about was when we all felt the impact of the acknowledgement which had occurred in Kamloops, and we all know that that's collectively what we've acknowledged and felt within our own areas, and it's happened all across the country. So continuing their journey program is a program that was new that came out in 2012, or sorry, 2021. And so this was, after Kamloops. And so at the time, the trustees at that time allocated some funds specifically to respond to some of the needs in our communities and in our regions, and for our family members and our people, in terms of recognizing and understanding those missing and unmarked graves, and trying to document that so that we can recognize the people who didn't come home, that they are acknowledged and named and welcomed home. And that comes in different areas. Some of that comes through the archaeological investigations. Sometimes it comes in healing circles. Sometimes it's a matter of gathering people together. Other times it could be commemorations on the sites. And mostly it involves community involvement. And so this is a new fund that was identified. So as you've seen, there was $832,000 that's left here for Ontario. So we also have another option. Like I shared, there's if they're not qualified in one area, there's an opportunity that there could be qualifying for another. So we've also launched a Beyond Reconciliation, which is $100 million fundraising campaign, so that we can continue to do the work that we need to do without the restrictions that are identified through the URSA agreement. And one of the components that we've done is, so far we've raised $14 million, and we've distributed that across the regions. And for Ontario, what we've been able to do is fund, was it 22 or 6? 22 of 60 applications that came in that normally would have been ineligible under the two applications within 10-year rule. So then we were able to reach out to those ineligible organizations, let them know that this new fund was available and encourage them to reapply so that there is some supports that are available for the communities or the organizations which serve our communities. And so we've been so far raised $14 million. We got quite a long ways to go, but the goal is not to give up. So there's, that $100 million campaign is to help serve our community. So again, we're reaching out to all different kinds of organizations and philanthropists and again, as a charitable organization in receipt of some of those funds. And, some of the priorities that are identified here in Ontario, help lend that voice into terms of, who we're reaching out to, how we're reaching out to them, and how it's going to benefit everybody. So collectively, those voices are stronger. Okay.
I'll add one thing to the Beyond Reconciliation. So far our fundraising has come mostly from corporates, from banks, and large philanthropists. And it really is fulfilling those gaps that Linda had mentioned earlier around, we're funding at 58% in organizations, 85% or in individuals. So or 50%. So it's about getting it to that 100% so that there is no competition. There is no, denials anymore because the resources are scarce. So we're hoping to raise money to do that. So I'll just say my thank yous now. Thank you all for allowing us to speak, and, don't be shy. Feel free to come up and ask questions if you want to know more or reach out to me. I'm more than happy to answer anything.
Nahamig Wechkanawe.
Miigwech, ladies. Is there any questions or comments on the presentation? Bobby Shin. Questions or comments on the presentation? Microphone 2.
Bonjour. Miigwech. Nina Bruce, that's Nipinishkum, Chief Martin Falls First Nation. Miigwech for your presentation today. I just wanted to say that, the residential schools has done a lot of damage to our nations, and whatever settlement was done in the past has not done enough. It's immeasurable what we lost in terms of our language and culture. Today, government funds language programs, and they do it at their discretion. It's no longer an issue of reconciliation for them. So, I just wanted to make that point that, I think, we have to go in that direction, that we need to see this at the priority level to get our languages back, our culture, what was lost during the residential school and other legislations that have affected our language and cultures. Thank you very much. I would like to recognize my my relative and Anna Betty at Snipinishkum, Deputy Grand Chief of Nishnabisky. Miigwech.
Microphone 2.
Watcher, Miigwech, Linda, for representing us on that particular board and being our voice, especially for the legacy of our survivors. The concern that I have is I'm wondering if this particular board and this entity also has a mandate to oversee some of the organizations and other groups and campaigns that say they're representing survivors and supporting survivor groups. And meanwhile, I think that some of them may actually be falsifying their mandates, and I have a concern about that. And I think that there has to be some type of process to examine those particular entities. For example, when it comes to September 30th, the day that's been designated to commemorate the Indian residential school and in that particular legacy, we have all these different groups that are selling these orange shirts and saying that they're that the funds are going to survivors and other survivor campaigns or other to contribute to healing and wellness. So that's my question and my comment. Miigwech.
I appreciate that question, Anna Betty. One of the things in terms of the applications that come in, they are reviewed by a committee. And then furthermore, some of those applications that come in have to have letters of support from neighboring communities, really identifying what some of the work that they're doing. I think it also helps having an understanding of the regions and, what is some of the work that, let's say, friendship centers are doing, maybe some other times there are schools that are making applications and I have to bring myself to wonder if schools are moving on this area, why aren't they funding this themselves? Like we pay tuitions and they have relationships with other organizations, receive funds at times from, other donations as well. How is this not some of their part of their normal application? So it's again taking that time to review some of those applications and trying to understand fully what is that impact going to be in the community, and is it just a lazy way of offsetting doing some of that hard work in terms of that reconciliation and serving the populations that that we know exist within our within the region here and the and across the country. I hope that satisfies you. Miigwech.
Resolution 2510A. If Chief Cheryl St. Dennis, are you in the room? Proxy Counselor Marla Maneg, are you in the room? Yes. Chief Cheryl St. Dennis. Is there a chief that's able to support this resolution? It's prioritizing adequate and sustainable resources and supports for the healing journeys of First Nations and survivors related to Indian residential schools and associated institutions. That's the resolution. Is anyone prepared to be the mover? Yes? All right. Miigwech. So we have a mover and seconder for the resolution. Therefore, be it resolved that the Government of Canada and Ontario recognize a legal obligation to fund the identification, documentation, maintenance, commemoration, and protection of all Indian residential school unmarked graves, grave sites, and cemeteries. This includes the locations of burials and missing children associated with Indian residential school operations, both on former IRS properties and those that are located beyond the former IRS school boundaries. Demand the Government of Canada and Ontario provide funding to lead communities and organizations engaged in the work of identifying, documenting, maintaining, commemorating, and protecting unmarked IRS graves and cemeteries that is adequate, predictable, and continuous. Demand the Government of Canada and Ontario Immediately dismantle internal bureaucratic barriers and delays to achieving adequate funding, supports, and resources. Demand the Government of Canada prioritize without delay the development of an implementation committee as per the OSI's final report obligation 41 to provide oversight on the implementation of all of the obligations in the final report. 5, demand the Government of Canada and Ontario enact legislation without delay to criminalize and penalize any form of denialism related to Indian residential schools. 6, reiterate the demands of the Government of Canada to continue, expand, and adequately fund the Office of Special Interlocutor and the Independent Special Interlocutor to implement the recommendations for a new federal legal framework developed by the Office of the Independent Special Interlocutor and to formally respond to the OISI's final report. 7, note that this resolution is without prejudice to any initiatives or work being undertaken by First Nations organizations, survivors, families, and experts on this issue or related issues, and to the inherent and treaty rights of all First Nations in Ontario. That is the resolution. Would the mover or seconder like to speak to the resolution? Would the mover or seconder like to speak? Microphone 3. Microphone 2.
Although I'm kind of mixed up here. My dad is a mover or seconder. Mover, seconder.
He's a mover. You're the mover.
Okay, I'm the mover. Mover and shaker. But anyway, could I get a friendly amendment there on number 7 there?
Number
I just
7.
wanted to put up there that you know, this resolution should also support work done by our First Nations, etc.
Note that this resolution is without prejudice and with support.
And should support and like give support. And should give support.
Did you say it again, Bruce?
I just want to say that it should support the initiatives also.
Yes. And with support and give support. And give support. To any initiatives like that?
Yeah,
Okay.
that looks good.
Microphone
Oh,
3.
I wasn't finished.
Okay. Sorry, Bruce.
Yeah, Miigwech, thank you. I have just wanted to make a comment there, you know, because you know, I think all families are affected by this, you know, even within our family, you know, we had some of my late father's family members that didn't come back, and we don't know where they are with the residential school system. That happened. We don't know what became of them or where their graves are. So you know, there has to be some kind of resources given to the First Nations, you know, to support, you know, that reconciliation piece. Miigwech.
Microphone 3.
Anim Bojo, Bewaba Nungos Tishnikas, Chimnison Donchba. Morning, everyone. My name is Marla Maneg, and I'm proxy for Bosley First Nation. Our community of Chimnising is happy to support this resolution. I think the presentation that we just had here is a testament to the fact that we need more funding as we focus on intergenerational healing and not intergenerational trauma. We're really seeing the benefits and impacts in our community of the funding and the amazing work that this organization is doing and our PTOs are doing on behalf of all of us, and the reconciliation work needs to continue. And so we just ask that everybody supports the resolution. Miigwech.
Miigwech. Any questions, comments on the resolution? Microphone 2?
Chief Russell Leslie. I just want to introduce myself as a residential school survivor. And, but I have just a short question really on the debate that we've been having on the provincial government's bill. It affects a number of acts. One of them is the burials. And then the other one is the Heritage Act that deals with archaeological issues. I would need some certainty as to what potentially the impacts of that particular bill would have on this. The other thing is we've been struggling so much for funding. I know we're still working on the Pelican Falls Indian Residential School. And Lac Seul is taking the lead on that. And I think we need to make a bigger effort at continuing to hold the government accountable for this particular issue because as far as I'm concerned, and there was a fellow there that I was talking about earlier that didn't even know his mother. So there's no closure. For me, there is no closure. And I think we need to make a concerted and stronger effort to continue debating this issue with both levels of government for funding for many other issues. Because
Miigwech. And hopefully this resolution and further resolutions will bring some light to that concern that you have. So we have the resolution. It's been moved and seconded. It's been moved and seconded. Questions called. All of those in favor of the resolution? Miigwech. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion is carried. Miigwech. Who's next? I'm going to ask for your patience. That we're going to try and ensure that you, as the chiefs, will have your food brought in. I'm as anxious as you are to finish off our agenda. And we need a couple of things, and we did get some shortcuts in our resolutions, but I do need you to be here so we can carry on with the resolutions. So we're going to bless the food. We're going to have the food brought in for you, and we're going to start with the resolutions right away. Dave?
Bonjour, Mina. You're in the Gabon and there's the cast, Makwaga do them. Conjugating gain, Dungy. Asami Wetchkanagao, Gabat the Gadango came to Asami Wetchkanage, Manpeo, Wabu Sneeing, Gagin went. And the Shamaman Granage, Mabe, and Gimatic. Simi Wetchman, the Mamadzuan, give me the going on. When it's a knock the wind is young, when it's a knock the wind, Gaginoa. Mige Vinjabai Kaginoa. Simi Wetchman, the Kebe, the Mustang, Gagin went on peak. Miigwech northern give me the gonang yo nesewen. Miigwech kunage mandi yo nebi give me anguk, she give me chigatenguk, kenagego. Miigwech kunage mandi yom skote or the skote and the tanguk non. Miigwech manda mamadzuan give me the gonang, manda yo medium, we object tonang and ageo medium, when again the wisniang kenagegi noa, semi gwechke non. Miigwech manda mamadzuan give me the gonang when I wonder a debench get going, edges again, gigging with you when it's a quam the month. Miigwech yun nibi. Asa miigwech kinagagego. Miigwech. Aho. Wisnik. Hindi ko. My creator, and I be released.
I guess they said lunch.
So, chiefs, proxies, we are not taking a break. But here's the plan. We've had the blessing for the food. Staff are being asked if they can prepare a plate and bring it in. And they'll give you a choice. I think the choices might be chicken or beef. So they'll give you a choice of what you want. We would like to continue on with the resolutions. But we need to ensure that we have quorum because we are now making decisions. So we need a quick count here in the room and also online. So if you are an official proxy or chief or delegate, please raise your hand. Raise your hand. If you are an official delegate, raise your hand.
No quorums.
We will also check online.
Grew up with Tom, you know, and
That I see here and 8 online.
that's here, we reach from chief.
So we need 4 more to make sure we have quorum. I know some chiefs are just coming in. I know, I just saw Chief Miracle, Regional Chief McLeod is proxy, correct? Okay. So that's 2. I need 2 more. Chief Carr is coming right back. We need to make sure in the room and then we can proceed with the resolutions. So the staff will be making plates. It's a buffet lunch. There's 2 options. I think one might be beef, one might be chicken. They'll bring one of each and you can grab whichever plate you'd like. We need 2 more chiefs to make their way into the room and we're also monitoring online. So the quorum count for today is 26. We do need 26 in the room physically and virtually in order to make decisions. The reason we need to do that is we are getting immediately into resolutions. And for the first 2 resolutions, I think I am turning it over to my colleague, Vera. Chiefs, just to let you know, the first 2 resolutions will be dealing with yesterday's discussion points on the provincial Bill 5, which is now legislation. It's no longer a bill. And also the federal Bill C5. We started on the first resolution yesterday. There was a discussion that we would take those 2 and merge them. The resolutions team had a look and it's felt that it's best to keep them separate. So they'll be brought back as 2 separate resolutions. Because the discussion was in camera, we will stay in camera for those 2 specific resolutions. If a resolution is passed, in order to make that resolution public, because it's in camera, we need a motion to make it public. So there's a couple of formalities we have to go through. We now have quorum in the room. So I will turn it over to my colleague Vera with the resolution, but at this point I am going to ask for a motion to go in camera. Can I have a motion to go in camera? I have a mover and a seconder. All in favor of going in camera? Raise your hand. Miigwech. Any opposed? Any opposed? Any opposed? None. Abstentions? Abstentions? Last call, none. So motion is approved to go in camera for these 2 resolutions. If passed, we will make a decision whether to make them public. Can we turn off the live feed?